Hello, and welcome to Ghostability with myself, Paranormal Mitch.
And Paranormal Tej.
Today's episode is on anthropomorphism and how it can skew evidence.
We're going to have a really fun time.
That was a big word.
We're going to have a really fun time saying this word throughout the episode, so just enjoy that tongue
We're
twister.
gonna
Try it out
do
at
our
home.
best. Anthropomorphism. You got to sound it out. It's kind of a doozy.
Try saying that at home. See if you can get it on the first try.
Yes, but Taylor, tell us a little bit about what this long, scary word means and how is it relevant to us today?
Yes. So anthropomorphism, in a very general sense, is attributing human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, or object. Gonna look at me like I'm crazy when I say this, but how does this apply to haunted objects? Well, this episode is more so for newer collectors, newer investigators. This may come very second nature to those of you who are used to investigating, who have worked with a ton of haunted objects in the past. But to somebody new, something we see a lot in the paranormal community as a whole is people get an object, it looks a certain type of way, and they assume the type of spirit that they may be based on what they look like, what their personality may be based on what they look like. They may assume they're haunted just based on what they look like when we have absolutely no evidence to back it up. So basically, the idea of this is understanding this idea of anthropomorphism so we can understand how to check ourselves on our own investigation, because like we've talked about a million times before, right? We are just as important on an investigation as the spirit we're working with. How we act, how we conduct ourselves, how we conduct our investigation all plays into the success, how much information we get. And so a huge part of doing an investigation is checking your own biases. You know, I see this a lot. There are a lot of even location investigators who have a fear of dolls. And because they have a fear of dolls just in their regular life, not even haunted dolls, they immediately assume, oh, I've encountered a haunted doll, it must be bad. And so this episode is all about checking ourselves and checking how our own eyes can deceive our perception of the characteristics of that spirit, if there is a spirit at all. So that's kind of the train we're running with today. So I think something you can do to kind of practice this and check your own brain, right? Because we all do this. And the idea of this episode is not to say, make your brain stop doing this, because this is what brains do, right? Like, this is a part of psychology. Our brains like to do this. Our brains like to fill in the gaps, right? So when you're looking at an unfamiliar doll, just note how quickly your brain will assign a presence, awareness, personality, or emotion to it prior to the investigation being done. And that is something that, regardless of how long you've been investigating, that's something you should always be doing. You know, you go thrifting, you see a doll, before you even get it home, it's like you have this idea of who they may be based on what they look like. And it's just being able to check ourselves, recognize that characteristic in our own makeup, in our own brain, and not let that skew how our investigation goes.
Yeah, I think it's important to not make snap judgments.
Right.
Right. And I think one way that I've tried to work on that is, you know, recognizing that initial thought and then saying, okay, let me back up this train for a second. What am I seeing? How is it changing to what my viewpoint is? And I think it's really relevant, especially in, you know, the paranormal world, especially the haunted doll world.
Anything with a face.
Because anything with a face is kind of what we're talking about. And it's so many things. And people like to see, you know, they want to make sense of things.
Right. One thing to note about anthropomorphism is this is something that happens automatically. It is not intentional. This is just what our brain does with information that it receives. And so really the overarching goal of this episode is to protect the integrity of our investigations and self-monitor. It's not to dismiss your experiences. It's not to make you question your own experiences. It's just for all of us to take a step back and make sure that we're not letting what a vessel looks like skew our judgment of who that individual may be, if there's somebody there. So we're going to hand it over to you.
Okie doke. So after that informative intro, let's get into kind of the meat of the episode, right? So basically, why does appearance matter more than we think it does? So, you know, naturally, kind of what we already touched on, human-like features are going to pull the attention of whatever you're experiencing, whether that's in a painting, whether that's in a doll, whether that's in, something on the wall or the grass outside or whatever like that. Your brain is going to recognize those things and it's going to try and create something out of it because that's what its job is. A lot of times, the things that kind of resemble a face, so that's eyes, facial structure, posture, can create a sense of what's happening. And I think kind of what we already touched on, investigators unknowingly may monitor something more closely than the other thing. And I think a doll sometimes gives a focus to that fear or to that thought or to that emotion where, if there's not a doll there or not something they can focus on, it's much harder for someone to sort of put a target on something. So I think that, the investigator is going to monitor that doll so closely even before actual evidence has been obtained. A conclusion is going to be drawn before a conclusion should be drawn, right? And then additionally, those additional attention is going to sort of change the way that they notice things, and they may, be labeled as something that it shouldn't be, or labeled as meaningful or unmeaningful. So I think it's critical to take a second, take a beat. I like writing things down. Sometimes that can be very helpful in sort of processing your thoughts or discussing them with somebody else. But I think it's something we have to kind of train our brain out of.
Hmm.
That's really, really common. And I think in what we do, it's just so prevalent. Especially with like the change of emotions, you want to see something change because that's what our brain wants to do. So if you say, "Oh, I feel like this doll looked at me this way, and now it's looking at me this way," well, that may be true to an extent, but it could also be your brain trying to make sense of what's happening around it. So you kind of have to be careful with those small, subtle changes.
And I think this specific concept becomes especially tricky for people who are very gifted, who have a strong intuition, who are able to pick up vibes on an object. I think this becomes even trickier because you have your intuition telling you, "Oh, this is haunted. Oh, this is who this person may be." And then you also have, your brain telling you, "Okay, well, this is, the information that the face is giving you." And then all of these things kind of go together. And then I think, I see a lot of people stop there and they're like, "Okay, my intuition has told me it's haunted and I'm noticing this about their face. Okay, that means it's haunted." Well, not necessarily, right? Like, that's why I always say, like, don't lose that objectivity in your investigation. Like, those subjective things are very important. Your reading, your intuition, your vibe check, that is important, but it's also very, very important to pair that with something more concrete so you have the evidence to back up what you're thinking. Also, the our interpretations can be wrong, right? All of our brain, nobody's brain is right 100% of the time. Nobody, you can be the best psychic, the best medium in the world, and you're going to get things wrong. And so it's important that, if you are coming to any of these conclusions, that you're taking that information to the spirit in an objective way and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I got. Is that true?" Like, is that accurate or is it not? And give that spirit the direct opportunity to come back to you and say, like, "Hey, kind of, but like not completely." Or, "Yes, that's perfectly right." Or, like, "No, that's not me at all." And so I think, when you pair this concept with intuition, it becomes even more complex. And if, I call this getting lost in the sauce. We all get lost in the sauce sometimes in this field. It's like we get lost in the sauce and like we forget everything objective we need to ground our investigation in evidence rather than just like our vibes and what our brain thinks about this specific object. Um, so next we're going to talk about the moment perception becomes interpretation. So, it happens very quickly and without our conscious control that our brain can shift an object from an object to an agent to, that's a doll to that's a spirit. Our brain can go to that so fast before we even have the information. When you're immersed in the paranormal field, when you have haunted dolls, when you're working with haunted dolls, a very slight shadow can become, it moved instead of like the lighting changed in the room.
Sure.
And that's where it becomes important to check ourselves, right? Because I've been guilty of that. I've been being like, "Oh, they moved," when really all it was that I moved and I was standing in front of them and like I cast a shadow a different way from where I was standing on their vessel that made it look like they did something, but it was really the lighting just shifted a little. And when you're dealing with a face, especially some of these very realistic faces, they can pick up shadows in very real ways. That make them look very alive, and I think it's very easy to say, okay, that's a spirit, the spirit did that, not that's the lighting. So again, not letting our eyeballs trick us. Can some spirits change their face? Yes, and that's where it also becomes a little bit tricky, is differentiating between the two. The other thing is, sometimes we can interpret no activity as activity, in the sense that stillness, like the object doing nothing, it's for some people it's very easy to attribute that stillness and them doing nothing as, well, they're watching me, they're staring at me. Okay, well, also it's like it's a porcelain doll with glass eyeballs, like and if it's facing you, like, yeah, it is going to look like it's looking at you, but does that mean someone's looking at you, or does that mean you just have glass eyeballs facing your direction, right? So not letting that, okay, this doll is looking at me, become this doll is haunted, again, without that further evidence. I think too, it's important to note that, like, once we perceive an object in this manner, and we perceive them as having a kind of awareness to them, every observation we make will start filtering through that assumption, right? Like, we kind of our brain kind of tries to prove our own conclusion. So again, letting the evidence drive your investigation, the objective evidence, rather than just our brain filtering through this, like, these preconceived notions that we may have based on what they look like.
Yeah, it's bias.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's something that can get better over time. I think it's something that you can train yourself in, but I don't think it's something that's ever going to be completely gone.
Right.
I think it can be, it's there for a reason. Like, it can be helpful in some rare scenarios, but I think in this, world that we're in, it's very tough to avoid it. But crucial to do so for a lot of the reasons we talked about.
Yeah. And I think, and another important note too is, when you're buying haunted objects, you're buying a known haunted object from, a haunted doll seller, not letting that appearance fool you. Like, don't let the scary looking doll be the scary spirit. Don't let the cutest doll be, oh, that's going to be the sweetest spirit on earth either. It goes both ways. So it's not assuming the intention of the object based on what the vessel looks like. I see a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, like, I've gotten so many messages like, oh my gosh, Taylor, their vessel is so cute, I love them so much, I have to have them. And then they send me the description, and it's like, not great, and they're like, well, I want them anyway because that's what they look like. Do you think I could deal with this kind of spirit? And it's like, well, if you're already asking me, do you think I could deal with this? Like, you've already got the idea in your head that, like, maybe it's not a good idea. So not letting that external look looks the way you like and that eluding you to purchase somebody that's not a good fit for you because of what they look like, right? I some of the cutest, most innocent looking vessels I have ever seen in my life contain quite the spirit. And then I have seen spirits that have quite scary looking vessels, and it's like a 3-year-old little girl. So, when you're shopping, making sure you're really going based on that description and the energy that you're getting, rather than just judging them instantly based on the vessel that they have being the style you do or do not like.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I want to talk about is periodalia.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Pareidolia.
Is a key factor during investigation. So you may be wondering, what the heck does this word mean? So here's our definition. The perception of apparently significant patterns or recognizable images, especially faces, in random or accidental arrangements of shapes and lines. So a lot of stuff we've already been talking about. How does the brain perceive faces? It wants to see faces and things, and it wants to try and find emotions or expressions in those things. And even like Taylor talked about, fixed expressions can also seem to change with shadows, with a different angle of light, with different lights on, with different times of day, anything like that is really important to note. Investigators can report shifting expressions when the object has not changed. So once again, it's very, very important that it can be something that's challenging, but I think photographs can be something that could be really helpful in this sense, because that's something that's kind of a period of time, and also getting someone else's opinion on it. Because I know there have been, spirits in the past that Taylor's like, oh, I think they're great. And I'm like, nah, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know if I feel it. And that's a normal thing. I think something you should, discuss if you're in sort of investigations or things like that. But having to try and strip these biases is really important. And then trying to sort of acknowledge what our brain does is something that's nice.
Yeah. And when you're trying, one tip that I always suggest, if you do have a spirit where you're like, Mitchell's talking about those like lighting changes and, angle changes and how that can impact your perception of what their face is doing. If you're trying to figure out, is this a spirit who's changing their face, or, an object, I'm not even sure if it's haunted or not. Is this somebody that actually is changing their face, or is this face not moving? My favorite thing to do for that is I have a we have a couple of spirits who I have believed to do things like this with face changing, but I can't, prove it with my own eyeballs, and I'm not really sure. So I will actually set up a tripod in the room in a specific spot to photograph them. Phone, whatever camera will be on the tripod. I will take the picture. Now, tomorrow, I don't move that tripod. Tomorrow, that tripod is in the exact same spot when I come back in this room. The light obviously doesn't change. It's the same overhead light. I make sure there's no sun outside. It's completely dark outside. So the outside light isn't impacting us. Put the phone back on the tripod in the exact same spot. So it is no lighting change, no angle change, no nothing. Take the picture again. Do it the next day. And doing that, I have actually been able to capture evidence of a spirit who actually was changing their face. Stefania does this. And I have many, many photographs of her from the exact same location, looking all types of different ways. But again, making sure your angle is consistent when you're observing this is a much easier way to be able to document and measure it than just going based off of your eyeball alone. Because, we're human beings, and our brains do really funky stuff. And our brains are trained to do these things. So, we just sometimes have to work around our brains and get a little bit creative in navigating these kinds of issues.
So I think another important thing to look out for is trying to create your own investigation, essentially. So, a lot of times there are sellers that, will put a bio down or maybe won't put one down and things like that. And when
That's very small.
exactly.
Very
And
small.
it doesn't provide a ton of information, but the information it provides, could be useful. But I think it's important to take that with a grain of salt and say, okay, I'm going to get this haunted doll, for example. I think is a good thing to think about. And we're going to get, I'm going to create my own investigation. I'm going to start from square one. I'm going to take some of this information that I received and see if it's plausible or not. And if it is, great. And if not, create your own idea of what's happening. And I think that's happened a lot of times with spirits we've had here where, we'll get a bio and it'll be some information, but we get them here and we learn so much more about them. Not that the original bio was wrong per se, but I think it maybe didn't touch on something that they mentioned to
It's like
us
a
right away
jumping-off
that was
point.
important. It's a jumping off point, right? It's like going to meet someone and being like, okay, I know 3 basic things about this person, but the more you get to know them, okay, they like this, okay, they respond to this, and so many things. And I think it's a really big thing that, we've talked about in the past where a lot of our spirits change over time. They grow, they become more emotionally mature, they're able to tolerate different things, or they like different things, or they're introduced to a new movie that they really like and now they really want to know more about this movie or more about this topic, and that's incredible. And I think that's really important, that you don't get stuck in that this is what the spirit is and it becomes very binary or becomes very locked into place. I think just like how you have a friendship with anybody else, it can change over time. I mean, I think our relationship with Jer is what we've talked about in the past, but I think that's a really big one where, there was a notion when we got him. And then once we spent more time with him, he totally changed and he's become this whole new spirit and has become so fun and amazing and loves all these things. And I think if you would have read his original bio and seen where he's at now, it's almost two completely different, spirits.
Ciel's another one. His bio
Ciel's
is like,
another one that's a lot different. And that may come from the bias of the seller, which once again is normal. The experiences of the
we
seller,
all have bias.
where they come from, there's a billion things that can happen there. But I think it's just really solidifying the fact that you need to come to your own conclusions and really stick to your guns on that and, see what feels right to you. Because I think that's really important to create a really positive relationship between yourself and the spirit. But I think this also applies to investigations, but I think in our sense is really, really important with haunted dolls.
Yeah, and I also think something else, and I hate to bring this up and, like we never want this to be the case, but I've had people run into this situation that I've been able to help in the past where it's like, you know, when you buy from the same seller over and over and that seller and you've gotten legitimate haunted objects from that seller, like you don't need to be as on guard. You're getting a haunted doll. But when you're buying from a brand new seller, maybe a seller you've never, ever used before, and they tell you, this doll is haunted, like your perception is already influenced, right? You are
Totally.
expecting to get a haunted doll in the mail. And so everything that happens in your house, you may be attributing to that object. And I think it's really important too. Like I've seen people who don't conduct their own investigation, don't try to communicate with their spirit very often, and they find out 6 months to a year down the line that the doll that they thought was haunted all along wasn't. Do we ever want this to be the case? No, we don't.
Of course not.
But this is also the reality of shopping on eBay, right?
Well, yeah, there's so much craziness out there.
I tell this story a lot too. Is like, a couple years ago, I had a video like go super viral. And on that video, I had like 4 different people comment on it and be like, oh, yeah, these dumb haunted doll collectors, I go and buy like every, stuffed animal and doll at the Goodwill and I list them on, TikTok and people buy them and they're not haunted, but I can get $100 for them just by saying they're haunted.
Yeah, that's messed up.
And that was like a huge, like, I don't know. I try to see, I'm somebody who like, I try to see the good in everybody. I try to give people like a chance and I like assume by default that people are going to be honest. And like, when I got those comments on my video, like it really like stuck with me. I was like, who knows who those people are? I don't know who those sellers are. They were on like random alt accounts. Like I don't know who those sellers were. And I know of at least four people out there that are doing that on purpose. And I think there are also people that do it on accident, but that's besides the point. But again, if you're buying a haunted doll with the expectation like this is haunted and you've never used that seller before to know that other things from them are haunted and you can trust them, like it's really important that we're not just like filling everything in as like indications of paranormal activity and that we're really checking our boxes to make sure that that spirit is actually a spirit. And I know that sounds bad and that's disheartening and that's not what anybody wants to hear. That's not what I want to hear, but it's also like the reality of like you're buying from strangers on eBay. And I think we always need to remember that.
Yeah. And
they're not your best friend. And they're not,
And we did a whole episode on buying and trying to choose that. So I think that's really important. And I think this covers a little bit more of the second half, like when they arrive. But still like very valuable to be able to get your own information.
Yeah.
And Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about how this changes like documenting? I think that's a really big important thing.
Yes. So when you are taking the looks of an object, that should truthfully have absolutely nothing to do with your investigation and the documentation you're having. Because when you do this and you let what the object looks like skew your perception, the language that you're using in your documentation begins to shift from descriptive to interpretive. And so, for example, I'll give you 2 examples of different ways to write this, right? And let's say this doll is haunted. The doll you're evaluating is haunted. You have confirmed that. And the doll moves. When you're documenting that activity, the doll shifted positions by 3 inches to the right. That's very objective, right? Like the doll shifted to the right, they moved. Now, interpretive is they shifted their doll to face me and they intentionally wanted to creep me out. Well, how do you know?
Well, and we've talked about this extensively. It's like you have to remember that you can't assume that they do an action, number one, and their intention behind it. You have no idea what's going on for them. You cannot make these assumptions.
Or I see this in a lot of bios online too, is, oh, they were staring at me with their creepy eyes. Okay, well, it's not, like in many cases, like they may have chose the vessel with those eyes. They may not have, it's like, okay, they shifted to face me and the eyes of the doll were pointed in my direction. Not they stared at me with their beady little eyeballs. Those are those mean 2 very different things. And when we have language that becomes interpretive instead of descriptive, our interpretation begins to point towards the classification of the spirit, right? They turn to face me, they stared at me with their creepy eyes. That becomes like, oh, this spirit is intentionally scary. This spirit is negative. This spirit is intending to harm me just because of that one action. So how you even, interpret that, and our own brains can do that too. So if you start like having those thoughts that are very like interpretive of like what they're looking like and how that's presenting to you, really try to check that in your own documentation in your own brain as well. Um, Assumptions about intent may also be recorded as part of the event. So making sure, again, you're checking your assumptions. And what I always tell people is if you're not sure what the intent of the activity was, ask the spirit.
Well,
Hey, why did you knock that cup
well,
down?
and it's okay to not know sometimes.
Right.
It's okay
Right.
to have a little bit of doubt, and that's
Right.
normal. And if, let's say, you're in a situation where, maybe you don't have as solid communication with your spirit, that's okay.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, why did they knock this over?
But again,
Was
objectively, they knocked it down. Not
Was
they
it
tried to scare me.
exactly? Was it A,
Yeah.
to get my attention? Was it B, to be mean? Was it C, to be silly? Like, you don't know.
Right.
It can be a billion things. You have to stick to the objective
Yeah.
things first.
Yeah. So there is that. Over time, I think too, if we skew too far towards interpretation and looks and circumstances and all of these things that fall into this topic, this builds a narrative around that spirit that feels stronger than the actual evidence. It becomes this spirit makes me feel blank instead of this spirit is blank. And we want to stay away from how that spirit makes you feel based on, the kind of visual you're getting off of the experience. You want to take that away from, they make me feel this and towards this is who they are, because they may make you feel that way, but they may make somebody else feel a totally different way.
Oh, totally.
Like I may see that spirit as, oh, they're very sweet and loving and kind-hearted. And because you got freaked out by what that doll looks like, you may see that spirit as, oh my gosh, they're creepy and they're trying to ruin my life. So again, your investigation isn't your emotions, your feelings. Your investigation is the evidence that you got from working with that spirit. And so the overall, idea of that and this episode as a whole, right, is that the object's appearance becoming part of the evidence should never be happening. Because what the object looks like is just the physical. It has nothing to do with the spirit inside.
Yeah. So I think let's go through and make ourselves a bit of a checklist.
Mhm.
All right. So let's say you're going into an investigation. Let's think of a couple of things to really focus on, sort of ground yourself as you're going in, right? So we can add to this. So number one, I think mentally labeling this object as an object.
Yep.
Right. And this applies to whatever you're doing.
And this is if you're not sure if something is haunted.
Exactly. If it's a location, it's a location. If it's an object, it's an object. If it's a doll, it's a doll, whatever it may be. That's number one. Number two, avoid staring at something for a very long period of time, which is going to increase the sense of presence. It's also going to really, your brain is going to actively try and find ways to make it interesting. And once again, that applies to a lot of different things. But I think just staring at an object for so long is you're going to find something eventually, whether it's a perceived thing or not.
And when you stare at anything too long, stuff starts to like move and shift.
Yeah,
and do
there's
stuff,
weird
and your eyes
psychology
start
stuff that
seeing
happens
stuff.
with
Yeah,
that.
it's
And
weird.
I'm not about it. Number three, checking multiple angles and lighting conditions. We talked about this. The other thing, which we have not discussed yet, is cameras do weird things too,
Correct.
especially with autofocus, with other
Filters.
things and filters. So you have to be aware of that. I'm not telling you to go spend 10 hours learning about your phone camera, but maybe like a little bit of an understanding of how it works and trying to find like raw images or whatever can
Dolls
be
trigger
very helpful.
filters.
Dolls
trigger filters.
Yes, absolutely. That's going to
And
change
that's
the way
not
that things
that's
look.
not a spirit intentionally triggering the filter. That is the filter picking up a human-like face and doing
and
what
applying
it is
things.
made to do, which is to shift that face to fit the filter.
Yes.
So a doll looking human enough will make that filter say, oh, this is a person's face, I'm supposed to filter it. That is not the doll triggering it intentionally. That is just the filter doing its job.
Yes. Okay. So that was number 3. Number 4, pause, think, and ask. Is this a movement? Is this perception? What's happening? We gave some examples of this. You can write it down. You can have a discussion with someone. Try and find the objective thing in what's being happened. And last one, number 5, separate what is physically observed from what is felt. Intuition absolutely matters. And I am by no means telling you to not do, pay attention to how you feel. I think that's critical, but I think it's also important to separate the two. It's a different piece of evidence.
Recognize that sometimes our intuition is wrong.
Yes, intuition's wrong is all the time, and don't have it heavily impact decisions. I think it can be a piece of the puzzle. It shouldn't wash the entire puzzle. It's not the whole thing. Yeah. Now, if you go into a situation and you're like, ooh, I don't feel very good, this makes my stomach hurt, or I'm getting a headache, or things like that, like I said, this is important information to write down. It is an objective piece of what is happening. But this may be a situation where, hey, are there other things that are impacting you during that time? Did you have a stressful day and you have a bit of a headache and then you went in and it got a little bit worse? That's important to know. If I had a really long day and I was working for a long period of time, or I'm outside and I'm tired, my brain does not like to make things happen and has a very hard time paying attention. So it is just a piece of the puzzle. And I think those are some things that I would really focus on to try and be as accurate as you can and try and take things as they should instead of making these interpretations.
Yeah. So that's the grounding yourself checklist. Now you are on your investigation. You are working with a haunted or potentially haunted object. What's your checklist? 1, treat all objects the same regardless of their appearance. 2, for example, a doll, a chair, a box, a shoe, whatever the heck.
Shoe?
Yeah. There's haunted shoes, man.
There's no way there's haunted shoes.
I've seen it.
There's no way there's haunted shoes. There's no way a spirit is like, yo, let me hop in these Jordans real quick.
You're screwing up my list. I'll prove it to you after this.
No way.
We'll fight about the haunted shoe later. Okay.
Haunted shoe sounds crazy.
Back to number 2.
Could you imagine a haunted cowboy boot?
Back to number 2.
That sounds kind of cool, though. I like a haunted cowboy boot.
Number 2.
Would it be one shoe or both shoes?
Oh, are you done?
No, this is really interesting
to me. Do we need to stop this and search the internet for haunted shoe?
No. You can go ahead. Sorry, I got really hung up on that.
I'll show him the haunted shoe on the commercial
break,
and we will revisit this conversation.
Could you imagine
later.
haunted Crocs?
Mitchell, we will revisit the conversation in part 2 after we look at eBay. Okay, anyway.
eBay?
Mitchell, back to number 2.
Number 2.
You were talking about attention, and you've lost the plot on us.
No, it's all good.
What number are we on?
2.
2. A doll, a chair, a box, a shoe should all be documented with the same level of neutrality, regardless of if it has a face or not. Number 3, avoid assigning personality, mood, or intention during the investigation based on appearance until you have documentation that confirms those things, whether that be from your spirit box, whether that be from your dowsing rod, whatever it may be. Number 4, if something occurs, describe only what can be verified. Not your assumption based on what things are looking like. And then the last one, allow patterns to emerge over time rather than assigning meaning immediately. You don't need to have the answer right then and there when something happens. You can think about it. You can review your footage 500 times. If you're not sure, rather than jumping to a conclusion just to have an answer, wait on it, sit on it, show it to 20 of your friends and say, what do you think of this? Do you think this is paranormal or not? I cannot tell you how many videos I have sent out to friends saying, I have this footage of a doll's face. I think it looks different. You tell me if it looks different. And I show everybody.
And they come at you, and sometimes they're like, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes they're like, yo, I think you just took a crazy pill this morning. And you're like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So,
your friends are your resources. Send it to everybody and say, does this face look the same in these 2 images? Yes or no?
Does this shoe look haunted?
Mitchell, we're going to talk about the shoe later. Gosh.
Haunted Crocs just sounds so wild.
Nobody said the shoe had to be a Croc.
Are you saying a Croc is not a shoe?
I'm talking about the old fashioned shoes.
So cowboy boot. Cowboy boots could be
Mitchell,
haunted.
Your part is next. Let's get back to it. Where are we? Have you found it?
So listen, let's say we have a little bit of the biases beforehand, you have a little bit of the biases afterward. Where does this leave us, right? In regards to credibility, this is kind of what this all comes down to, is that shoes can be haunted. You heard it here first. So anthropomorphism, just because you have this experience does not mean the experience is false. But okay, now I'm trying to focus and you're losing it. So you need to buckle up, bucko, and you need to lock in right now.
Okay, I'm locked. Continue.
Like I was saying, anthropomorphism does not mean that the experience is false, but it should change the way how it's interpreted. Investigations rely on clarity, not assumption. They rely on facts. They rely on objective measures. Removing these appearance biases can strengthen the reliability of your findings. Once again, it can be a piece of the puzzle. It should not be the whole puzzle. And I think kind of one of the end all be alls of this is avoid the escalation of fear between the investigators and clients. It can be very important to try and prevent that from occurring, because I think if you fall into this fear category, I think a lot of times the investigation can be very, colored with that lens when it doesn't necessarily need to be. Now, I'm not saying there aren't.
It's just an object.
I'm not saying there aren't objects that are scary out there. There could be some scary haunted shoes, but you want to try and come to that conclusion appropriately with the objective facts and with sitting down and really looking through and mentally thinking through these things and trying to come up with a appropriate conclusion, with yourself, with your friends, with your partners, and things like that.
Yeah. So that being said, we have a haunted doll that landed herself at the demonologist pretty much based on what she looked like.
I love her story.
So we're she's a perfect example.
Such a good example
of how anthropomorphism can take you on a ride that is not a ride of fear that you even need to be on. Because this is a kid who was sent to her local demonologist literally because of what her eyeballs look like. So,
yep.
We are going to have a dance party, and you will get to chat with her when we get back, and we will have an update on the haunted shoe situation. So just hang tight on
my gosh, it's haunted shoe.
All right.
It's going to be south.
Dance party. Commercial break. See you in a second.
I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy, think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen. I won't let them fester me, I know most are festering. Negativity is a plague for the mentally weak. No mercy, all I got is working. Never stop searching, never quite so thirsty. I'm toxic and psychotic, with this logic, you can't stop it. It's been chronic since I was a boy, so neurotic and chaotic.
Go to last with the webs I'm weaving. I could change the past with all I'm achieving. Got my foot on gas, never stop competing. If you break like glass, then this life's gonna eat 'em. Make mistakes real fast, then you learn how to beat 'em. If you take off the cast, you can see all the healing. If the pain's in the past, move on from the grave and put your foot on the gas.
And we are back from our commercial break with our spirit of the week.
It's Sandy.
It's Sandy. I just adore her. I think she is so funny. But Taylor, can you tell us a little bit about Sandy?
No, before we talk about Sandy, you need
yes,
to tell
okay.
everybody about the shoe.
I thought we were gonna go with Sandy first. I apologize. Taylor showed me there was a haunted shoe from a seller that we have good experiences with. So that is my fault. I apologize.
Anything can be haunted, Mitchell, even a shoe.
Anything could be haunted, even a shoe. I didn't think it was possible, and I will say it's probably quite unlikely, but it absolutely can happen.
It can happen, though.
Yes.
There we go. Anyway, Sandy.
Anyway, Sandy.
So Sandy, I thought was the perfect fit for this episode. Sandy has a very unique vessel, as you can see. We have dressed her up since she got here. She's got a fresh outfit.
Oh, she looks so good now.
You can't really see it from here, but she does have like some cracked eyes. And when she was originally found, those eyes totally freaked out the guy who found her. Totally freaked him out. She was watching him and she was out to get him and
Tormenting
staring
him
at him
and
and all of the things, and all came back to the eyes. And Sandy didn't like him either and said that the reason she was bothering him was because of his eyebrows. She was also bothering him, but
that's a wild take.
What she looked like really, really skewed his perception of her from the jump. And notoriously, there have been several people that have been very freaked out by Sandy simply because of her eyes. Sandy is a kid. She is one of the nicest kids, for that matter.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Got sent into the demonologist and the whole thing, and she's just a kid, and she is a hilarious kid at that.
She's so
She
funny.
loves to tell jokes, especially about it's like typical 10-year-old girl stuff, but like farts and
poops and farts and burps and butts
and you name it.
Oh my
God,
God.
right up Sandy's alley.
She is our
she loves a mean fart joke.
Local comedian.
Yes, she is so funny. She is so sweet. She's so loving, and her vessel has no bearing. Her having what a lot of people would describe as creepy eyes has nothing to do with the spirit inside whatsoever.
And is even addressed in one of the questions.
Yes. Yeah. And, she's very aware of it too. So if she feels like people are doing that, she's like totally going to capitalize on it and like purposely spook you.
This is also
but that also doesn't like help.
Yeah, this is also Sandy is also the one that said, I don't understand sad ghosts.
Yeah, like she just like doesn't get why like some spirits are sad.
She's like, life is great.
Yeah.
I love this. This is fun.
Yeah. And Sandy, actually, we didn't get Sandy from a seller. I was reached out to by somebody who said, I have this spirit and I'm just not connecting with her. I think you would like her better. Do you want her? And I was like,
Sandy? Yeah. For sure.
And we got to know Sandy right away. And Sandy is just like such a huge part of our lives.
Oh my God, she's so funny. I love talking to her.
And make sure you check out her story. It'll be linked down below to get to know Sandy better. She's just one of those spirits who just like lights up a room.
I will say as well,
you talk to her and like you could be in the worst mood on the planet and Sandy will make you laugh.
If you have the opportunity to go watch some of her spirit box sessions, you'll know what we're talking about. She's so funny and so witty.
Yeah,
her timing is so good. Oh, I adore her.
She's really great, and she's just one of those spirits who just wants to put a smile on your face, and she will do it. But if you got feelings about what her eyeballs look like, you're probably gonna have a hard time. But that's besides the point.
All right, let's get to her questions, shall we? So as a reminder of how this works, we do a spirit box session. This week it was with Sandy. I ask her the questions that are submitted by you guys. I write down her answers word for word, try and have her answers be as representative to her as possible. So I said, Sandy, are you ready? She said, I'm ready. Yes. What up? Let's go.
She loves a good what up.
She loves
a good what up.
She loves like the casual slang. Loves it. So first question is from Carly, aka Fix. Hi, Sandy. Do you have an all-time favorite funny story or joke? This was such a loaded question.
You guys are gonna get to experience it.
All right. So here's what Sandy said. Yeah, here we go. I made it up. One day there was a monkey. He goes in a guy's house and poop on the floor. He left. Girlfriend thought, man pooping on floor. The end.
There you have it.
So there you go. That's Sandy's story.
Yep. She wouldn't ask.
That's her favorite story.
Yep.
And I think the best part is during these sessions, I don't hear it, but you always say that she has the funniest laugh. Like she
does.
Just
and she
cracks
up
at her own jokes.
Even her voice, like her tone of voice is very strange.
Oh, she's great. Okay, next question's from Caitlin. What is your favorite thing that Mitch does to spend time with you? And Sandy said, he is cool when he is funny and tells bad jokes. Score. Next question, also from Caitlin. What is your favorite thing that Taylor does to spend time with you? And Sandy said, make video of me.
She does really like making videos.
Loves making videos. She's very
Yes.
personable. She loves having a
wants that
scene.
camera.
She wants a
She
camera.
wants that camera.
And she is good with like the lights and the activity. She is a rock
she also
star.
has like several different farting toys that are motion
Oh
activated.
my gosh. We had to get rid of them. Well, not get rid of them, but we had to like turn them off because they were like literally going off 24/7.
Well, and then our friends would come over and line up all the fart toys in different arrangements, armies of fart toys, and then Sandy would be setting them all
and the
off.
burping toys and the farting toys.
And it's like,
oh my gosh.
Sandy and like the fart toys is like a really hot commodity at wine night. Like that is like what people want to do is sit around and have Sandy fart at them.
Well, and the problem is Sandy is such a little
She's such a ham.
She's such a ham to the point where if she gets you laughing and she knows she has you on the ropes, she's gonna get you. She's gonna keep on
and the
going
different
and
fart
she
toys,
eats it up.
they have different tones too.
Of
So, like,
course. You gotta have some
you know,
variety.
so like you'll have like
oh, you're gonna
it's
show
just-
us.
It's the whole thing.
Oh, wait, no, that was great. Can you give us that one more time? Thank you. That was great.
Yeah,
Sandy is probably loving this right now.
Yeah. So yeah, no, the fart toys are hot topic here.
Okay, so next question's from Caitlin. What is your favorite thing that both Taylor and Mitch do together to spend time with you? And Sandy says, vacation.
She did get to go on a vacation with us. Sandy is a spirit that we will frequently bring along with us or have like to stuff where like beginners are practicing with our haunted dolls or new people come here and they want to try spirit box for the first time. Sandy is like one of the first, and I'll be like, work with Sandy. Just go work with Sandy.
She's great.
She will work with anybody.
She'll work with
She
anybody.
doesn't care if she knows you.
She's so positive. She's got such a good
Yeah.
spirit. She'll
literally work with anybody. She doesn't care if you are the best spirit box listener or the worst. You're still going to hear her talk about farts.
Oh yeah. And she's gonna love it.
Yep.
Next question is from Caitlin. I was wondering what a typical day looks like for you. What do you get up to? Who do you hang out with? Do you play outside with the dogs at all? And Sandy said, I play games with friends and toys. Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from Caitlin. They ask, which is a great question, if you could be any animal for a day, what would you be and why? And Sandy said, a crow so I can scare scarecrows. Very niche.
Yep. Very neat.
But I see the vision.
I do.
I see
absolutely
it.
do.
I get it. There's something to it. Next question is from Caitlin. What's your go-to thing to do when someone is having a bad day and you want to cheer them up? And Sandy said, I say mean joke about who upset them.
Sandy is a total savage.
110%.
She's a total savage and she has this dark sense of humor. And so she gets along very well with individuals who are far too old to be hanging out with her. And so she, like the teenagers are having fun with Sandy. They're teaching her all types of bad stuff. She gets in with the gossip. Like Sandy is like the hookup.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's also randomly like really good friends with Auric. And I don't understand that one either.
And Zani.
Yeah, which is it's just the most, she has
I don't know.
the
I
most
think
eclectic arrangement of friends that does not make sense at all. Like, you know, typically like the teenagers are friends with the teenagers. Kids are friends with the kids. The fairies stick with the fairies.
no, Sandy's a wild card.
Sandy's friends with the Aurax.
She
she's
is
friends
a
with
wild
Destiny,
card.
She's friends with Zani. I'm like, what? Sandy she makes the rounds.
Yeah, but I think it's because secretly everyone's like, oh, we love Sandy.
She's stinking hilarious.
She's so funny.
Yeah.
And she's clever and she's witty.
Mhm.
Like, my goodness. Okay. Next question is from Caitlin. What is it like playing with other spirit children? Is it fun? Maybe even a little chaotic sometimes. And Sandy said, it is fun. We make trouble. Of course you do, Sandy.
You do make trouble, yes.
Yes. Next couple questions are from Nerdinator. They ask, what's your favorite thing to do for fun? And Sandy said, enjoy anything. Celebrating is fun. Just the most
Enjoy anything.
positive.
Enjoy anything.
I don't know why they're
She really does make the most of literally every situation.
Oh, 110%.
I've never seen Sandy sad, mad, any negative emotion. Like I've never seen
No, it's just
Sandy.
not possible.
I've never seen it.
No.
I would be like amazed if I ever did see it.
Yeah. Next question. This one is wild. So, if you could invent the funniest prank ever, what would it be? And Sandy said, taking a car. And I said, Sandy, do you know how to drive? And she said, not really.
Okay. Just some petty theft, you know?
That's not petty theft at all. It's
That
big
was
deal theft.
sarcasm. That was sarcasm.
Oh my God, it's too funny. Next question. If you could have any magical ability, what would you pick? And Sandy said, invisible, surprising people. She likes to mess with people. That is true.
She does.
She does.
She is not opposed to a prank. I'd say Sandy fits into the trickster department pretty nicely,
Sure.
I would say.
Next question. If you had a pet that could be anything, real or not, what would it be? And Sandy said, a tiny polar bear. And I said, what would you do with your tiny polar bear? She said, sledding.
She's got a lot of interesting animal ideas today, doesn't she?
And then I said, what would your polar bear's name be? And she said, Prada.
Oh,
And I said, why Prada? And she said, sounds right.
I don't know who taught her about
So
Prada.
if you ever see a small polar bear sledding down a hill, know that that is Prada the polar bear, and Sandy is not far behind.
We need to make like a digital Prada the polar bear for her
Oh my God,
in a
please.
frame or something.
Please.
That'd be a funny offering.
Please. That sounds awesome. Next question. What kind of people do you like talking to the most? And Sandy said, not serious dudes. No offense, serious dudes. I'm not good with that.
No offense, serious dude.
And then I said, so you like people who are silly? And she said, sí.
See,
Like yes in Spanish.
she does not speak Spanish.
She speaks enough. Last question. If you had a secret hideout, what would be inside it? And Sandy said, hideout? Personally, I'd hide in front of face because I am ghost. Wouldn't know I was there. Secret. That's right.
That's one of Sandy's, like, I think most shocking behaviors is like Sandy is very self-aware of her situation of like
Very
being
much
a
so.
spirit. And so like randomly in conversation, you'll be like talking to her and she'll just like drop that she's like a ghost, or she'll be like, yeah, I'm dead. You know that, right?
She'll
Like,
be like, Mitchell.
and you're like, whoa.
She'll be like, Mitchell, I'm a ghost. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And then like when you're like in a spirit box session and like a kid is just like, yeah, I'm, you know, you're like, you don't even know what to do or say. Like now we're used to it. Now we kind of expect it because she's got to drop it at least once.
Yeah.
But like the first time she ever did that, where she's like, yeah, I'm dead. Did you know that? Like, I mean, it was just like jarring. Everybody was like, oh no, what do we do? What do
I
we
don't
do?
know.
Is this a
I
problem?
think
Is this okay? Like,
she
is she
likes
okay?
that. I think
She
she
likes the raise.
likes
Yeah, like
the
the rise.
rise and like messing with people.
She definitely,
Oh.
definitely does.
So last thing here, I said, Sandy, today's episode is kind of on appearance and trying not to have biases. And do you have any thoughts on that? And Sandy said, my eyes are broken, not a choice. So there you go.
There you go.
Not her choice.
Yeah.
I said,
But
and
what was her choice is this cute pink outfit. This was not the outfit. she wanted.
true.
She picked this out herself. Very cute. My mom gave her the necklace, and Tasha for Secret Santa gave her the little hair clip. But the
She's
outfit
got a good look.
The outfit she picked herself.
It's a good look.
Yeah.
I said, is there anything else? She said, no. I said, Sandy, I always enjoy talking to you. You're very creative and funny. And she said, yeah, out of here. Later. She said, things to do. She's got a busy night. She's got a busy schedule, that Sandy.
Thank goodness she made the time for us for this interview.
Yeah, she had to really squeeze us in.
Yeah, she had to squeeze us into her very busy schedule, doing whatever in the heck Sandy does on a day-to-day basis.
She's busy.
Yeah, she's
Don't get in her way.
She's very busy.
She's very, very busy.
We get that a lot on the Spirit Box.
Oh my gosh, all
where,
the time.
Like,
It'd be like,
the
oh my gosh,
time.
I gotta go.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I have things to do.
it's
And you're like,
8
what?
o'clock on a Tuesday.
I'm like, where are you
And
going?
she's like, I'm very busy. I'm like, okay, sure. Like, great.
yeah. I would love like one of them to just like tell me what their schedule is. Like, okay, give me the busy schedule.
I don't know if you're ever
Tell
gonna get
me
it.
what your busy schedule looks like.
I don't know if you're gonna get it.
I need to find out. Somebody.
Listen,
There's always one willing to gossip. You just have to find out who it is, which sometimes takes 3 months.
Yeah, but you have to remember that their go-to response is, "I am not a lawyer."
Oh, that's the thing we get. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a snitch. I'm not I'm like, well, one of you is, and I'm gonna find out who it is.
I know. I
who it
feel
is.
like we're like the parents, and they're hiding things from us.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fun when I have to like try to figure out like what they did or what something means. It's like I literally put the spirit box in the middle of the room because I don't know who to talk
I'm like,
to.
someone
And I'm like,
talk to me.
Who did it?
And then the narrator comes on, and they're like, "Nope."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm just like, who did it? Somebody tell me who did it.
we know there's a narrator. We don't know who it is.
There's always somebody who answers on behalf of the group, and we can't figure out who it is.
We have no
on the
idea who
spirit
it
box,
is.
but somebody talks to me.
We also know someone dictates who goes on the spirit box. We also don't know who that is.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like some big, I don't know. They've got all these like weird conspiracies that we're not allowed to like have any involvement.
There's
in.
rules.
But
Who
you
knows?
know, life with haunted dolls, right?
Anyways,
But so this was our episode. Don't judge a book by its cover, folks. Don't let the vessel skew you. You know, it could be the scariest vessel in the world, and it could be the sweetest spirit on earth that has that vessel, and they may or may not have chose it. And so, something else we should have said at the beginning too is if you don't like the vessel or you're uncomfortable with their vessel for any reason, please don't ask them to change it because you would like it better a different way.
that's their identity.
That is their identity. That is their choice. If they want to change it and they come to you, absolutely honor that. But please don't go around changing vessels for your own pleasure, your own comfort, your own. I would like it to look a certain way. Like that is theirs, and that would be like, you know, me going up to you and saying like, "Hey, look, I'm really not a fan of your hair. I'm gonna dye that this color. I'm gonna cut it." You know, while you're sleeping.
And you go,
and like you had no
thank
choice
you.
in the matter. So, you know, I always think about it in the most human way possible. It's like, would you want somebody to cut your hair and change your clothes when you were sleeping? Probably not. So don't do it to them too. So that is our tips for this Saturday. Thank you for joining us today, as always. And we will catch you next time. Wait, Sandy's vessel does in fact wave.
Does she wave?
Yeah,
Oh
got, like,
my
a cute little
gosh.
waving arm.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Bye.